Hey, Dori.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you.
I'm really excited for our conversation today.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, we're happy you're here. Tell us a little bit about you.
So, I am a special education teacher from Long Island, New York. So, I just finished my ninth year teaching. It would have been my 10th, but I had actually left teaching for 1 year. Uh, and I teach high school special education in the social studies classroom. So I have 10th and 11th graders for the most part with global history and US history.
Awesome. So why education? Why did you get into teaching? It's been almost 10 years.
Yeah.
What keeps you there?
So I'll be honest, I just always loved school, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I didn't think too much about it until actually one of my grad classes was a teacher identity course, right? Which had us like dive into one of those questions was exactly that. Why did we become teachers? Um, and I realized that I gravitated towards it so naturally because I had such a good experience myself.
Yeah.
Yeah, so for me, it was, I realized that school was kind of like a second home for me from elementary to middle to high school. Um, and I loved that I could give that to kids, to
Yeah.
students. I almost feel honored, right, that I can help shape their lives in that way.
Yeah.
They have to be in school, right? And that's something where I can shape the rest of their lives with the experience that they have with me.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, and I'll be honest, I when I was in undergrad, I was considering law school at one point.
Hmm. Hmm.
I was a history major with a concentration in secondary ed. And I remember the beginning of our program, they kind of said, all right, history majors do two things. They either go to law school or they become history teachers. And once I had started the observations that we had to do before we actually got into like the student teaching, I was like, I realized that I felt so comfortable there. I loved being in the classroom, even if I was just sitting there watching other teachers do their thing. Um,
Can you tell me more about this concept of teacher identity? Tell us like what that means for you and how does that identity play out in your classroom, in your teaching?
so I think one of the biggest pieces to being an impactful teacher, right? Really making that difference that we want to make is getting clear on what your identity is. And so for me, I spent so much time early on. I want to say my first like 3 or 4 years, I was always worrying about what I should be doing.
Yeah.
And that word should can be so toxic to um, the way we're approaching the classroom, right? Because we're constantly second guessing what we're doing. So I think that the teacher identity piece is getting clear on how am I showing up authentically? How do I want to do this? How do I want to show up for my students? And I know, especially with high schoolers, they can tell if you're faking it or if you're really being you, right? Are you bringing your most authentic self to the classroom?
Mhm.
Um, and I had to stop second guessing and comparing myself to what other teachers would do in this situation or that situation.
Yeah.
I had to really trust my gut and know that I'm showing up for my students in the best way I know how. Um, and I also had to embrace like it's not always perfect either. I had to embrace the mess a little bit. Um, I think that you have this, you go into teaching sometimes, especially when you're new, and you have this image of what it's supposed to be like and what you should be doing. And inevitably, things don't always go to plan. And so, again, it's trusting that you know what to do in those situations, and you can learn from it. There's always something to learn. It's never going to be perfect.
Mhm. So could I say that you would say your teacher identity is centered around authenticity and embracing all parts of, being a classroom teacher, even those things that seem really messy?
Absolutely. Because it's really more about those messy pieces that we can't avoid. They're always going
Yeah.
to be there.
Yeah.
It's about looking at the growth opportunities there rather
Mhm.
than beating yourself up over it and saying,
Mhm.
oh, I should have done this, or so and so would have done it this way. I think it's really, really easy as teachers to kind of play that comparison game, um, and then go down that road of, I should have done this. And
Mhm.
it's about trusting your authentic self.
Yeah. And what has been like the biggest challenge in sticking to that, or powering forward in your teacher identity in the classroom in almost a decade of doing it?
So I think the biggest challenge is the fact that there are so many opportunities for that outside influence
Yeah.
infiltrate um, infiltrate what you're doing, right? Infiltrate your inner talk.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, I mentioned earlier that there was one year that I left, and looking back, it was 100% me letting outside influences um,
Yeah.
infiltrate that talk. That I was, my inner talk about why am I here and what am I doing. Um, I I mean, it was one of the best things I ever did because it brought me to where I am now, and it helped me realize um, that I was in the right place and that
Mhm.
I should be following my gut and my intuition. Um, but yeah, there are just so many opportunities for um, that comparison game, or for other people to say, you should be doing it this way, or I want it done this way, and you're kind of cornered into uh, pleasing other people, right? You're
Yeah.
into those expectations, and it's hard. It can definitely, it takes a certain level of self-awareness to realize, am I letting too much of those outside influences impact the decisions I'm making?
I mean, I think that cultivating that inner space and nurturing that inner landscape is just important for teachers and everyone. So like what tools, how do you manage that? How do you sort of nurture that fire within from outside assaults?
So I think the biggest thing for me has been taking time at least once a day to like really get still, right?
Yeah.
Um, there are so many distractions in the world that we live in. And as good as social media can be in terms of connecting and networking, um, it can also, the flip side of it can also be that I'm seeing what all of these other teachers are doing, seeing their highlights, right? You don't always see the behind the scenes, or um, the imperfect things. Not everyone shows that. And so for me, it's about getting still and getting rid of those distractions.
Mhm.
So sometimes that looks like as soon as I wake up, right? Sometimes that could be um, first thing, I need to just sit and do some breath work. Um, I have become a huge fan of meditation, um, which is a journey in and of itself, right? You walk into that and you want to do it perfectly, but that doesn't happen. Um, it's just really about getting still and allowing and really checking in with how you feel. Um, because that's the other thing too with being teachers is I think we're inherently always worried about other people, right? Which is good. It's caring. But if you are always worried about somebody else and you're never checking in with yourself and how you're feeling, that can become a crutch, right? It looks selfless and it looks great, but if you don't put the pause button on that and really think about what do I need, that can be a detriment if you're not taking that time and you're not taking that space for yourself.
I mean, I love what you said about just the importance of like pouring into your cup, so that you can share that with others, especially as teachers. Can you maybe talk about a time, like, what do you notice? I heard you say you are enjoying meditation, you're enjoying taking time to practice stillness, all of these different self-care techniques. What do you notice about yourself, about your classroom when you do that and then you go into your classroom and teach your students?
So that taking that time for that stillness, taking the time out to meditate, I definitely see a difference in the way I show up in the classroom.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is we can't plan out every minute, right? We can't anticipate everything that's going to come our way that day. And I think any teacher can say that no day has ever gone completely to plan, right? And so if I don't take that time out for myself, if I don't check in with myself, then I am way closer to the edge when those curveballs appear, right? So if I have a student that needs me to show up uh, even keeled, right? If they need me there with my best self, if I haven't taken the time out to check in, if I haven't taken the time out to get still at some point in that day, then I'm not being there the best that I can, right? And I think that we're not going to be able to manage our emotions as well as we can. Because we do bring that to the classroom. There's no way of disconnecting that. And we wouldn't want to, right? We want to bring emotion into the classroom. But if I'm hit with an unexpected situation, I don't want my frustration to take the front seat, right? I don't want me being upset to take the front seat. I want to be able to show up with clarity. And it's harder to do that if I'm not checking in with myself.
That's really beautifully said, and I have a very similar experience. I haven't been in the classroom in years, but just in my day-to-day life, if I'm not centered, if I'm not clear, I bring that to every part of my experiences, and just taking the time to sit, to cultivate calm within myself, that carries forth with me. And then talking about it in the classroom, it's like a perfect model teacher opportunity to model to your students, this is how a human being can respond in certain situations, to check in before just automatically reacting to situations. So I'm a huge advocate for mindfulness, for meditation, for teachers, for students, for every human, really, because it's just so amazing.
Absolutely. I mean, that's a skill that you can apply to any situation, personal, professional, whatever field you're in.
Yeah. And I like that you called it a skill, because it is a skill. It's something that we can learn and that we can grow in and become better at the more that we practice it. It's the work of a lifetime.
It really, really is. And because I have found that too, right? Sometimes I find myself thinking, well, I've done the work. I know what to do, right? But that doesn't mean that I'm not going to have periods of time that are challenging or difficult. They're always those are skills that we're always going to need to draw on. We don't just reach the end of, we don't reach the destination and then say, oh, I'm good.
It's over.
You're
I'm
always,
finished.
yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. So we're gonna shift gears a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about what your plans are? What have you been up to for the summer?
Yeah, so I actually ended up teaching remote summer school.
Okay.
So I've been doing that Monday through Friday with a group of middle school life skills students.
Mhm.
So, and that was kind of unexpected. I had kind of thought that summer school was off the table for me.
Yeah.
That's what I had been told at the end of June. And then the first week in July, they kind of said, hey, we have this opportunity. Do you want to teach? Um, and I took it on, even though I was meeting a group of students for the first time remotely. I wasn't familiar with them. I hadn't worked with them yet.
Hmm.
So that was not a part of the plan originally, but I took that on, and it's actually been a really cool experience because during the regular school year, we weren't doing live teaching. My
Yeah.
district did not have us doing that. We were just kind of posting on Google Classroom. And so it's given me the opportunity to engage with students in that live setting. And I've actually come to realize that you can still cultivate that family feeling, that community feeling. It's a small group of students, 6 kids, but
Yeah.
um, that's been, uh, it's actually been a great part of my summer so far. And and then kind of going beyond that, I'm taking time to just try to do things that I enjoy and decompress a little bit from the school year.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm really trying to think ahead to September. And again, I'm trying to do that like deep dive work of teaching has really become redefined,
Hmm.
and asking questions similar to this conversation, right? Like what what does teaching mean for me? Like what's the impact that I ultimately want to have if and when our traditional curriculum is taken away?
Hmm.
So it's been a weird summer.
Yeah.
I think a lot of us can attest to. Um, but it's also allowed me to take a step back and kind of focus on the basics, right?
Yeah.
Focus on the foundation of what we're doing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And so, what have you picked up or learned from your remote learning summer school experience that you'll carry forth with you into the new school year, which is probably remote learning um, to start as well?
I think that community piece has been huge for me. Um,
Hmm.
so one of the settings that I teach in consistently is a 15-1
Yeah.
special class, so that small group, which has always been a favorite of mine because you end up becoming like a little family
Hmm.
with that group of students.
Yeah.
And I think one of the concerns with remote learning has been losing that
Yeah.
engagement piece. And I was truly a little concerned about trying to teach a group of students that I had never met in person before.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I really am enjoying. I'm on camera with them for an hour and a half, which is
Yeah.
a long time, and I'm enjoying every minute of it. And you really still get to know um, the students.
Hmm.
And so for me, the takeaway is yes, we have to plan the lessons, and yes, we have to follow a curriculum of some sort, right? But that's not the piece that's sticking with these students or really making the impact. It's connecting with them on a human to human basis, um, and showing them that yeah, this isn't perfect. This is not how we want it to be, but this is just the reality of it right now, and we can still make this work.
I mean, I just love that. It's like in spite of the circumstances and the conditions of where we are presently, there's still human to human connection. And that can be made remotely just as well as if, you were in a classroom together. I think that's beautiful and really important to move forward with into the new year, the new school year.
Definitely, definitely.
Mhm.
I'm honestly enjoying it. Is it challenging? Yes. Do I have moments where I almost have that same sweat you get when you have an observation, right? Like the computer froze or my mic's not working, it's
Mhm.
choppy. You
Mhm.
have those moments for sure, but I turn off every day and I walk away and I'm like, I just spent an hour and a half with these kids and um it was enjoyable. We were connecting.
Mhm.
And I'm hoping to, make sure we continue that for the rest of we have 3.5 weeks left with the program.
Mhm.
And I want to reflect on it and see what pieces are working so that I can hopefully recreate that if we are live teaching again in September. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, thank you so much, Dori, for joining us. This has been like a real pleasure. I'm
So,
really impressed with you and your teaching philosophy, and I'm excited for all of the students who get to meet you and learn with you. So, Dori, tell viewers where they can find you and learn more about you.
so the best place to find me is on Instagram. That's the balanced teacher. So the underscore balanced underscore teacher. And I'm actually working on putting together some resources for other teachers to help them with their mindset and stepping into their authenticity so they can make the impact that they want to in the classroom. So I'm really looking forward to networking and engaging with so many great teachers on here in this community.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dori. Thank you, everybody, for viewing. My name is Ashley Williams. I'm the founder and CEO of Infinite Focus Schools, which is a mindfulness and socio-emotional learning app for young people. You can find us at Infinite Focus app. And Dori, you can find her at, what's your handle, Dori?
The underscore balanced underscore teacher.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. Bye, Dori.
Thank you.